Reddit isn't just memes and funny posts. Beneath the surface lies some of the darkest, most disturbing corners of the internet. Today, I'm exploring the Reddit iceberg while surviving in Minecraft, and the deeper we go, the worse it gets. This Reddit disturbing subreddits. Iceberg has 6 layers. Each layer gets darker. As I go deeper into the iceberg, my Minecraft challenges will get more dangerous. When I reach the bottom, there's no going back. This first layer of the iceberg doesn't contain anything illegal and it isn't hidden. In fact, some of these communities are surprisingly popular. The disturbing part isn't what they show, it's what they make you think about. One of the most well-known on this level is a community dedicated to horror fiction. People share original stories about things that never happened, at least we hope they didn't. Stories about unknown creatures, skinwalkers, abandoned towns, and strange figures watching from the dark. What makes it unsettling is how real some of it feels. The comment sections are filled with people saying, "This reminds me of something that happened to me." Then there are the glitch-related communities. Places where people share moments that feel like reality malfunctioned. Streetlights turning off as they walk past, reflections moving differently, objects appearing in places they were never put. None of it is proven, of course, but after reading enough posts, even you start to question your own surroundings. Other surface level communities don't involve the supernatural at all, but they feel just as disturbing. True crime groups analyze real cases, real victims, real criminals, faces, locations, timelines, final moments. While the goal is awareness and discussion, it can feel strange seeing such dark topics treated like an interactive puzzle. And then there's the content that is hard to explain, images that aren't graphic but feel wrong, photos of empty hallways, abandoned playgrounds, fog-covered forests. Nothing is technically happening, but your brain tells you something's about to. It's not horror in the traditional sense. No monsters jumping at the screen, no blood, no screams, just discomfort. This is the top of the iceberg, the part that almost looks normal, but if this is only the surface, why does it already feel so heavy? If the daylight level of Reddit feels like this, what's waiting for me in the dark? The sky in my world is starting to turn orange now. Long shadows stretch across the grass as the sun sinks lower and lower. I keep telling myself everything is fine. This is just the surface level, the safe part of the iceberg. But safety on the internet is often just an illusion. Another group on this level focuses on bizarre and unexplainable events. People post detailed descriptions of encounters they can't explain, footsteps in empty rooms, mirrors reflecting movement that never happened, voices coming through disconnected devices. There is always a logical explanation, but logic feels a little weaker the more you scroll. As I place the final wooden plank on my first shelter, I can't shake the strange connection between these stories and the world I'm playing in. A dark forest in the distance and caves that stretch underground for miles and sounds that echo through tunnels with no visible source. Even a peaceful game like Minecraft can start to feel different when your mind is filled with these thoughts. There are also communities dedicated to oddly terrifying images, not violent, not graphic, just wrong. A giant mannequin standing in an empty field, a staircase going down into complete darkness, a children's playground with no children, perfectly still. People look at them and feel something they can't explain, a mix of curiosity and dread. And the worst part, you can't even explain why it scares you. Your brain just whispers, "Don't go there." A soft wind sound blows through my headphones as I stand on the roof of my shelter, looking at the horizon. The sun finally disappears. The world shifts into night. Stars fill the sky. Everything is darker now, more quiet. But in that quiet, even the smallest sound feels louder. A branch breaking, a distant growl, the rustling of leaves. This is exactly what these surface-level subreddits do best. They don't attack you with monsters. They plant ideas in your mind and let your imagination do the rest. And imagination is often much worse than reality. I climb down into my shelter and place a door. My tiny base is complete, safe, protected, or at least it should be. Yet a thought refuses to leave my head. If the most public, most harmless looking parts of Reddit can feel like this, then what can inside my shelter? The darkness presses in from every direction. Just a few blocks of wood stand between me and whatever is moving out there. I can hear footsteps now. Slow, careful, something wandering outside the walls. It's probably just a zombie. Probably. And that word probably is the same one people use again and again on these surface level subreddits. Probably just the wind. Probably just an animal. Probably my imagination. But deep down, nobody is ever completely convinced. That uncertainty is what fuels these communities. People don't go there to be terrified. They go there to understand, to find logic in the unexplainable, to see if someone else has experienced the same thing. And yet, the more you read, the more normal the strange begins to feel. I look around my small base, a crafting table, a wooden sword, a single torch flickering in the corner. It feels secure, but it also feels temporary, like something built in a rush to keep the unknown away. Just like the mental barriers we build when we browse these subreddits. We say, it's only a story, it's just a theory, it's not real. But what if some of it is? A sudden thump hits one of my walls, I freeze. Silence. Then another sound, scratching, slow, careful, curious. For a moment I don't move at all. I don't even breathe, and in that stillness something becomes clear to me. This level of the iceberg isn't about what's confirmed. It's about what might be true. It's about the thin line between imagination and reality, a line that feels stronger in daylight and dangerously fragile in the dark. Eventually, the sounds fade away. The night continues outside as if nothing happened. My world returns to silence. But the feeling doesn't. I realize now that the surface isn't truly safe. It just doesn't show its teeth yet. It smiles, it whispers, it invites you in slowly. And that's the most dangerous part. I step outside of my shelter just as the first light of morning touches the sky. The darkness begins to retreat. The world looks normal again, peaceful, almost innocent. But I know better now. I've seen what lies on the surface, and if this is only the beginning of the Reddit iceberg, then the layers below are going to be far worse. Do things exist where nobody is supposed to look? And more importantly, why do I want to look anyway? This part of the iceberg isn't hidden, it's still easy to find. Anyone can stumble into these communities by accident, but the tone here is different. Less fiction, less imagination, more real. These are the places where people share true encounters. Stories that don't start with once upon a time, but with this actually happened to me. One community on this level is filled with people recounting moments when they came dangerously close to something bad happening. A wrong turn down the street, a stranger who followed them for too long. A situation that only ended because of pure luck or a sudden escape. They write about strangers they still remember years later, even though nothing technically happened. That's the terrifying part, the almost. You realize how thin the line is between an ordinary day and something that never leaves you. As I travel deeper into a Minecraft forest, I'm reminded of those stories, trees blocking my view, no clear path ahead. I can't see what's between the trunks until I'm already walking past it, and in that moment of not knowing, my mind fills in the blanks. Other subreddits at this level are dedicated to the paranormal, shadow figures, strange patterns, repeated numbers, unexplainable coincidences that feel too perfect to be accidents. Most of it could be coincidence or imagination or pattern-seeking brain activity, but when thousands of people share similar experiences, it starts to feel like something more. I spot the entrance to a cave on the side of a hill. Darkness spills out of it like ink and water. I stop walking. Because layer 2 is where the pattern becomes clear. The internet isn't just for entertainment. It's a place where people confess their fears, their experiences, the things that still keep them awake at night. I switch out my sword for a simple torch. The rules for this layer are different. No fighting, no attacking, just surviving. I take one step towards the cave, and another. The light from the outside world fades behind me. And just like that, I've left the surface behind. The cave swallows the light almost immediately. One or two steps inside, and the world behind me feels distant, unreal. The only glow now comes from the weak torch in my hand, barely strong enough to push back the darkness. This is exactly how the second layer of the iceberg feels. You're still connected to the surface. You could turn back at any time, but with every step forward, that option feels less appealing and more frightening. More stories at this level come from people who claim they've experienced something that cannot be logically explained. Not ghosts or monsters, but patterns, repeating events, recurring strangers. The same car passes by at the same time every day. The same dream appeared every night for months. The same message read, "You weren't supposed to see this." And even though there is no proof, there is one thing all these posts have in common. The fear feels real. Not the cinematic kind, not the fun kind. The quiet, personal kind. It's the kind of fear you don't share with anyone. The kind that sits with you when you're alone. The kind that makes you double check your door is locked, even though you know it is. As I move deeper through the winding cave, I notice how narrow it becomes. The ceiling drops lower, the walls press closer, every step feels heavier. I can hear dripping water somewhere in the distance. I can't tell if it's close or far away. Sound behaves strangely underground. Just like truth does on Reddit. People say things online they would never say out loud. They confess things, strange thoughts, regrets, experiences they've never shared with another human being. And when you read enough of them, you start to realize something unsettling. These aren't just stories. These are people. real people, walking around the same world you are. And some of them have seen things they never fully recovered from. The tunnel splits in two directions. Both are equally dark, equally unknown. I hesitate, staring at both paths. This is another theme that shows up at level 2 again and again, so the idea of choice. What if you had taken a different route home? What if you had answered that message? What if you had gone inside instead of staying outside? So many posts on these subreddits feel like they exist simply to say, one small decision changed everything. I picked the left path and moved forward slowly, torch held out in front of me, like a shield that I know won't truly protect me from what I can't see. Because this layer of the iceberg doesn't rely on monster. It relies on possibility. And possibility, it is terrifying. The left tunnel feels colder. The stone around me seems darker, even in the weak torchlight. I try to stay calm, reminding myself that nothing in Minecraft can actually hurt me in real life. But that logic doesn't work on the mind. And it doesn't work on Reddit either. There are communities at this level dedicated to unsolved mysteries, missing people, abandoned buildings, forgotten towns, cases that have no clean ending, no justice, no explanation, just a question mark that never goes away. Some posts are years old and still waiting for answers. People scroll through photographs, maps, police reports, and blurry images taken at the exact wrong moment. They try to connect dots that were never meant to be connected. Sometimes they get close, too close, and then the thread goes quiet. No updates, no closure. As I continue walking, the tunnel opens slightly into a cavern. It's bigger, but somehow that only makes it worse. The darkness has more space to hide in. The echoes are louder, but less clear. Every sound bounces around, distorted, untrustworthy. That's another theme in Layer 2. You can see more, but understand less. People tell their stories and disappear. Accounts are deleted, posts are removed, comments are locked, and all that remains is a half-finished thought floating in the void of the internet. Some users claim they receive strange messages after posting, warnings, threats, requests to stop asking questions. Probably troll, probably fake. But again, that word, probably. Suddenly I hear a low growl. Not imagined this time. A real in-game sound. Something is nearby in the dark. Yet I don't raise my sword. Cute. Layer 2 rules. No fighting. Shut up. Only surviving. So instead of attacking, I step back slowly, quietly. My heart is racing in real life now, not just in the game. I turn, searching for the path I came from, but it already looks unfamiliar. Every stone wall looks the same. For the first time, I understand something important. This layer of the iceberg isn't about shock. It's about confusion. It's like you stole it, disorientation. The feeling of being lost, not on a map, but in information, in stories, in other people's realities. Eventually I see a faint glow ahead, natural light, the outside world. I follow it desperate and climb out of the cave just as the sun begins to set again. Another day lost, another layer is complete. I stand at the edge of the forest, staring toward darker terrain ahead. Mountains, ruins, a landscape that looks far more dangerous than anything I've faced so far. My survival instinct is screaming at me to stop here. But curiosity is louder, because I know that what lies next in the Reddit iceberg is not just unsettling. It's disturbing in a way that can't be ignored. Layer 3 is where the iceberg truly earns its name. These subreddits are still technically accessible, but most people don't find them by accident. You only get here if you're searching for something darker, something real, something most people avoid thinking about. This is where the internet stops being entertainment and starts feeling like a warning. Some communities in this layer focus on humanity's darkest impulses, not in a fictional horror movie way, but in a psychological one. Discussions about why people do terrible things, detailed breakdowns of crimes, motivations, patterns, behaviors, people trying to understand minds that don't think like normal minds. It's not just disturbing, it's uncomfortable, because you realize these people didn't come from another world, they came from this one. Another part of this level focuses on manipulation, cult dynamics. Social experiments have gone too far. Groups that convince others to believe in things that slowly disconnect them from reality, friends, family, and even themselves. Reading through these posts is like watching someone slowly walk into fog while everyone on the outside is screaming for them to stop. As I reach an open area in the world, I notice the ground drops away sharply ahead of me. A massive ravine stretches down into complete darkness. I walk closer to the edge and carefully look over. I can't see the bottom. It's just black. That's what layer 3 feels like. It's the point where you finally realize that the internet isn't just showing you disturbing things, it's showing you what humans are capable of hiding. And once you see that, you don't look at the world the same way again. I back away from the edge slowly, but the image is burned into my mind. Depth, darkness, unknown. Because that ravine isn't just in my Minecraft world right now. It's the exact same feeling you get scrolling this part of the iceberg, bottomless, and somehow staring back. The longer I stand there, the more that ravine feels like it's pulling at me. Not physically, but mentally, like it's daring me to find out what's hidden at the bottom. That same pull exists in Layer 3 subreddits. People don't just stumble into them, they stay, they scroll for hours, for days, sometimes for years, not because it makes them feel good, but because it feels important, like there's something here they're meant to see, even if they wish they hadn't. Another theme in this level is obsession. Okay, people fixate on unsolved cases, internet legends, strange individuals, hidden patterns. They build timelines, save images, compare details. From the outside it looks like curiosity, but when you read long enough, it starts to feel more like a hunt, a need for answers that might not even exist. There are also communities centered around disturbing media that doesn't break the rules, no direct violence, nothing illegal but still leaves a mark, audio recordings that make your skin crawl, images that feel wrong even if you can't explain why, videos that seem normal at first until you notice something in the background that wasn't supposed to be there. Nothing is ever clear enough to prove anything, but it's always clear enough to make you uncomfortable. My character edges along the side of the ravine now, trying to find a safe way down without actually jumping. Loose gravel falls away beneath my feet and disappears into the darkness. I don't hear it hit the bottom. That shouldn't be possible. Down there, I know there are caves within caves, tunnels twisting around themselves, paths that lead nowhere, dead ends, hidden spaces, just like this layer of the internet. You go in thinking you're just reading information, and somehow you end up questioning reality. Another thing that stands out at level 3 is how personal the posts become. People don't just share stories, they confess thoughts, desires, fears, things they're too ashamed to tell the people in their real lives. And strangers in the comments don't always try to help. Sometimes they encourage the worst parts. As I finally find a narrow path leading downward, my hands tighten on the controls. One wrong move and the fall will be instant, no chance to fix it. And that realization hits hard. Layer 3 is the point where mistakes stop being small, where curiosity becomes dangerous, where the line between observer and participant starts to disappear. I take one slow step down, then another, and I feel like I've just crossed the line I was never meant to cross. The narrow path winds down, twisting unpredictably. The walls are jagged, close enough that my character brushes against them with every step. Shadows stretch unnaturally, as if the light from my torch is fighting to stay alive. The deeper I go, the more the world around me feels wrong, familiar, but distorted. That's exactly how this layer of the iceberg works. The posts aren't shocking at first glance. They aren't gory. They don't jump out at you. They're written calmly, matter-of-factly, like someone describing a normal day. And that's the uncomfortable part. Because the situations described are often real, horrible things, yes, but presented without flair, without drama, no screaming, no explosions, just reality. And reality is far more disturbing than any fictional story. At this depth, many communities are dedicated to true crime and criminal psychology. Not for entertainment, not for fun, but for analysis. People dissect motives, patterns, and consequences. They connect dots that law enforcement might have overlooked. They speculate, they theorize, and in doing so, they step into morally gray territory. It's fascinating, it's horrifying, and it lingers in your mind long after you stop reading. I reach a point where the path opens slightly into a cavern. The ceiling is so low that I have to crouch. My torchlight dances across walls carved with strange formations, natural but uncanny in shape. I can feel the presence of emptiness, the same way you feel when you read posts about lost people, unsolved mysteries, and events that defy explanation. Some level 3 communities focus on accounts that claim interactions with cults or manipulative groups. They share testimonies about psychological experiments, indoctrination, and coercion. Reading them, you start to understand the subtlety of influence, how ordinary people can be convinced to do things they never imagined, how belief can distort reality, how obedience can become blind. It's impossible not to feel a chill. Another subgroup at this depth covers vanished or deleted content. Posts and threads that were removed for being too disturbing, too revealing, or simply too strange. People document them anyway, archiving screenshots and fragments. Sometimes the details are hazy, sometimes the story feels incomplete, but the sense of dread is intact. It's like reading messages from a place that no longer exists, a place that may have been erased for a reason. As I edge further along the cavern, the darkness begins to feel almost alive. Every shadow seems to shift in the corner of my vision. Every sound echoes longer than it should. Even in a safe Minecraft world, the tension is palpable. Oh, and that's what this layer of Reddit is like. You're not confronted with monsters or gore. You're confronted with possibility. The possibility that humans are capable of truly disturbing things. The possibility that reality itself can be stranger than fiction. And the possibility that some doors once opened can't be closed. I finally reach a ledge overlooking a deep, dark pit. The bottom is invisible. It's an abyss of uncertainty. The same feeling you get when you read posts in these communities, a mixture of fascination and fear, compulsion and regret, and a pull that makes you want to keep going even when your mind screams to stop. This is the final lesson of layer 3. Discomfort is a slow, creeping force. It doesn't hit you with immediate shock. It creeps into your thoughts, it lingers, and once you feel it, it's impossible to completely forget. I take a deep breath, preparing myself for what comes next. Beyond this layer lies the unknown. Beyond this layer lies content most people never see. Content that is no longer just uncomfortable, but dark. This is where the iceberg stops feeling like a list of interesting subreddits and starts feeling like you've dug into a part of the internet that wasn't meant to be casually explored. Nothing here breaks rules, nothing is graphic, but all of it feels strange, alien, almost disconnected from what normal online spaces look like. If the earlier layers were unsettling because of their surface level weirdness, this one is unsettling because of the atmosphere. These communities feel sealed away, like they exist inside their own pocket dimensions, places you wouldn't stumble into unless you were intentionally mining downward. Let's start with one of the most unusual. You might have seen subreddits like Imaginary Monsters or Imaginary Landscapes, those big hubs where artists post cool fantasy digital art, but Imaginary Nightmares is different. It's like the darker, forgotten wing of the art world. Nothing is violent or gory. The unsettling part comes from the designs themselves. Creatures with elongated shapes, impossible anatomy, dream logic proportions. Artwork that feels like someone sketched out the things you see right as you're waking up from a nightmare. And the strangest part is the community tone. People write lore, they build entire mythologies. Some even comment as if these beings are ancient entities observing humanity from the edges of consciousness. It's not disturbing because of what's shown. It's disturbing because of how deeply people treat these fictional horrors as if they exist. Next is a subreddit that sounds silly at first, fake history porn. Users create extremely realistic looking historical photos, except none of the events ever happened. They craft propaganda posters, newspaper clippings, famous moments that simply don't exist in our timeline. At first you think, oh, cool Photoshop. Then it gets weirder. People in the comments act like these events were real. They debate them seriously. They correct each other with made up dates. Entire alternate histories form layer by layer until you catch yourself thinking, wait, did this actually happen? Even though you know it didn't. It's disturbing in a psychological sense, not because of the content itself, but because of how easily your brain blurs the line between real history and perfectly fabricated fake history. It's like standing in a familiar Minecraft world, but noticing the structures have shifted just slightly, as if someone altered the timeline when you weren't looking. Now we move into something quieter, much quieter. This subreddit posts real photographs of places that feel like they're missing the people who are supposed to be there. Not ruined or destroyed, just empty, too empty. A water park at night with all the lights on but no movement. A school hallway during the day but completely silent. A train station that looks fully operational but has zero travelers. There's something haunting about these images. They feel like snapshots from a world that's paused. Like someone turned off all the NPCs in a video game but left the environment running. People in the comments often talk like explorers documenting a forgotten dimension. It's not scary in a traditional sense, it's the quiet that gets under your skin. Finally, we reach one of the internet's strangest storytelling hubs. This subreddit collects moments where reality behaves, oddly. Someone experiences a conversation twice. A person loses an object only for it to reappear hours later in the same spot they checked 10 times. Two completely unrelated events line up with impossible precision. Everything has a logical explanation probably, but the experiences feel wrong enough to unsettle people. These aren't paranormal claims, just people trying to make sense of brief moments where the world doesn't behave the way they expect. It's the digital equivalent of a redstone circuit repeating a pattern it shouldn't, or hearing a sound in Minecraft you've never heard before and wondering if the world seed is glitching. The truth is here. This subreddit isn't about conspiracies in the classic wild dramatic sense. It's more of a collection of eerie coincidences, bizarre unsolved moments, odd recordings, and unexplainable small events. Nothing graphic, nothing dangerous, just the kind of content that makes your brain itch. Scrolling through feels like watching someone point out cracks in reality that you never noticed. A strange sound heard by hundreds of people across different cities. A photo that shouldn't logically exist but does. Archive footage where something in the background just feels off. There's no fear-mongering yet, no dramatic claims. Just thousands of people calmly exploring the idea that maybe the world contains more weirdness than we acknowledge. Oh, it's unsettling because it doesn't try to scare you. It just presents oddities and lets your mind spiral on its own. There are outside. This subreddit is one giant metaphor, a roleplay community where people pretend real life is an MMORPG. Everything is discussed like game mechanics, elite bosses, area spawn rates, XP farming, patch notes, and skill trees. It sounds silly until you realize how detailed and committed the community is. People talk about life events as if they're quests. Countries are treated like regions with different difficulty levels. Weather is a severe event. Animals are mobs. It becomes disturbing when you spend long enough reading and begin thinking in the same RPG language without noticing. Real life starts sounding like a bizarre, poorly balanced game designed by a chaotic developer. It isn't harmful, it's just mentally disorienting in a way that sneaks up on you. Our liminal space. This is one of the core subreddits of the liminal space aesthetic, where people post images of transitional places that feel eerie because they're normally full of motion, but the photos show them completely empty. A hotel lobby with all the lights on but no staff. A children's play center was frozen in the early morning. So a stairwell illuminated by that weird yellowish lighting that feels both too bright and too dim. There's something deeply uncanny about these images, like you're standing in a place that's waiting for something to happen, but that something has been delayed forever. The deeper you scroll, the more the images blend into one long dream. You start recognizing patterns, the same colors, the same lighting, the same sterile architecture. It starts to feel like these spaces are pieces of one enormous building that stretches endlessly underground, deep into YouTube. This subreddit documents the strangest, most forgotten corners of YouTube, tiny videos with 30 views, uploaded 12 years ago by accounts that never posted again. You'll find old tutorials recorded on early 2000s webcams, random animations with no context, foreign language videos that feel like they were meant for an audience that no longer exists, clips of abandoned projects, prototypes, or experiments. The frightening part is the atmosphere. These aren't dangerous or harmful videos, they're just lonely. Echoes of creators who disappeared from the internet long before social media took over. Some are wholesome, some are unsettling, some are so surreal they make you question the origin of the clip entirely. It's like stumbling on old Minecraft worlds, saved on a childhood computer filled with half-built houses and chests you don't remember placing, the remnants of someone who left without saying goodbye. Are very annoyingly depressing. This subreddit collects content that isn't tragic or dramatic, just quietly sad. Posts about lost potential, abandoned hobbies, forgotten childhood items, or people slowly drifting away from things they once loved. Nothing explicit, nothing extreme, just the kind of sadness that sneaks up on you at 2 a.m. when you realize how fast time moves. This layer of the iceberg contains a lot of subreddits like this, spaces where the emotional weight isn't heavy but accumulates slowly until you feel it settle in your chest. It's not disturbing because it shocks you. It's disturbing because it's true. Found footage. This one feels like browsing a giant attic filled with forgotten media. It's a subreddit dedicated to strange, old, low-quality videos and audio recordings. Not graphic, not dangerous, just eerie because of how disconnected everything feels. You'll find VHS clips from the 90s, abandoned student films, test footage from unknown projects, and random personal recordings that somehow ended up online. None of them have clear explanations. None have context. All just fragments. The charm and the creepiness comes from trying to piece together what these clips were originally meant for. Most of the time you can't. They don't provide enough information, leaving your brain to fill in the gaps with guesses that feel uncomfortably plausible. And obscure media. This is like found footage's organized older sibling. Instead of random clips, users upload forgotten TV shows, old commercials, public access programs, and experimental short films that barely exist outside a handful of tape transfers. It's fascinating because it feels like archaeology. It's unsettling because the more you watch, the more you realize how much media has been created and completely erased from the collective memory. There's something eerie about seeing entertainment that once meant something to a small group of people but has now been swallowed by time. It reminds you that almost everything we consume will eventually disappear the same way. R. Unresolved mysteries. This subreddit isn't about graphic crime stories. It's mostly discussions, summaries, and theories about mysteries that remain unsolved. Old disappearances, strange events, bizarre coincidences, and unexplained historical moments are all talked about here. What makes this place deep isn't the content itself, it's the feeling of incomplete information. Every post ends in a question mark. Every story feels like a puzzle missing its final piece. There's no closure, no satisfying ending, just threads that stop abruptly. Scrolling long enough makes you feel like humanity has far more unanswered questions than answered ones, and that realization alone hits harder than any scary story. About our internet mysteries. This subreddit explores unsolved mysteries specifically from the online world. Old websites that vanished without explanation, YouTube channels that uploaded once and disappeared, ARG-like posts that were never followed up on, weird Reddit accounts that popped up, acted strangely, then went silent forever. None of these are sinister, they're just uncomfortably open-ended. It's strange realizing how many digital footprints exist with no origin or conclusion, accounts created for a single message, videos uploaded with cryptic titles, websites that seem to have no purpose. It feels like wandering through abandoned mine shafts in Minecraft, paths that stop midway, tunnels that lead nowhere, broken rails and no sign of who built them. Gawar Depth Hub. This subreddit collects deep discussions from all over Reddit, but not in an edgy or extreme way, more like quiet philosophical rabbit holes, people asking existential questions, long-form explanations of obscure concepts, reflections about time, memories, fears, and life choices. It's not disturbing in the traditional sense, but spending too long here can make your brain feel heavy, like you're thinking too much about things you usually avoid. It fits perfectly into layer 4 because it's the kind of place you find only if you're already wandering the deeper parts of the internet, the part where curiosity slowly turns into introspection. Layer 5 is where the iceberg finally earns its name. Everything above this point felt eerie, uncomfortable, or psychologically strange, but the abyss is different. This layer isn't about surface level weirdness, it's about subreddits that feel dense, heavy, communities that exist so far from the mainstream that stumbling into them feels like encountering underground structures in Minecraft that were definitely not part of the normal world gen. Nothing here breaks rules or enters graphic territory, but the vibe is darker, colder, and more intense. These are online spaces built on obsession, isolation, or hyper-specific concepts that spiral much deeper than anyone expects. Let's begin the descent. Blurst images. This subreddit mixes blessed and cursed into images that sit in that exact uncanny space between funny and mildly disturbing. Nothing unsafe, the intensity comes from contrast. You'll scroll past photos where everything looks normal until one detail flips the mood completely. A mascot costume with a face that's too expressive, a normal living room with a single object that makes no sense. Everyday situations captured at angles that feel unnatural. It's humor wrapped in discomfort. Half the time you laugh because your brain doesn't know what else to do. It feels like the visual equivalent of hearing two music discs play at once in Minecraft, chaotic, confusing, and weirdly captivating. Abandoned porn. The porn in the name refers to photo porn, meaning extremely aesthetic photography. And here the aesthetic is abandoned places taken to a whole new level. These aren't simple empty locations, they're places that look like time stopped decades ago. Old hotels overtaken by nature, hospitals filled with dust and rusted metal, malls so large and quiet that their silence becomes a presence on its own. Again, nothing graphic, but the images hit with a sort of emotional gravity, like walking into a Minecraft stronghold where every door is already open and you have no idea who explored it before you or why they left. The deeper you scroll, the more it feels like you're not just looking at buildings, you're looking at someone else's forgotten world. Deep folklore. This subreddit collects myths, urban legends, and strange regional stories from around the world. Not violent stories, not graphic, just deeply atmospheric. Tales about forests with no birds, lakes with impossible reflections, or small towns with traditions that feel older than recorded history. Reading these stories long enough gives you a sense that humanity has layers of folklore that never made it into book, and small local myths that feel real because they're rooted in cultural memory rather than spectacle. It's the type of place where you start to wonder how much of our world is built on stories that were never written down, the unknown, the half-remembered, the inherited fears passed through generations. In a way, scrolling through feels like discovering new biomes that exist just outside the normal Minecraft map, still connected, but different enough to unsettle you. Are uncanny videos. This subreddit focuses on videos that aren't scary or disturbing, just wrong. They feel off in ways that are hard to explain. A family video where everyone moves just a little too slowly. A commercial from the early 2000s where the music doesn't match the visuals. A clip of a street at night where all the lights flicker at the same rhythm. Nothing dangerous, nothing shocking, but your brain recognizes that something about the footage doesn't line up with reality as you know it. This place belongs in the abyss because the discomfort is psychological. It taps into instinct instead of logic. The videos hit that part of your brain that says this isn't how things normally look, and the feeling sticks with you long after you scroll past. Weirdcore. Weirdcore is an aesthetic built around nostalgia, confusion, and dreamlike visuals. The subreddit is filled with images that look like they were taken straight from a childhood memory, except the memory doesn't belong to you. Distorted hallways with pixelated text. Old computer UI screens that say things like, "You shouldn't be here." Forests with colors slightly shifted into unnatural hues. Rooms that look familiar but impossible to place. It's not horror. It's not unsettling in a gory way. It's unsettling because it speaks to the part of your mind that remembers dreams you had when you were 5 years old but can't fully describe. Weirdcore feels like wandering through a Minecraft world that is generated based on memories instead of code, familiar enough to recognize, but wrong in countless tiny ways. Are unresolved, not to be confused with unresolved mysteries. This subreddit is more introspective. Here people talk about unsolved moments in their own lives, experiences, conversations, or events that never got closure. Someone describes an old friend who abruptly disappeared from their life without explanation. Another person recounts something strange they saw once as a kid but could never identify. Someone else talks about a moment that always bothered them but never had an answer. Nothing graphic, nothing dark, but the tone is heavy. These are the loose threads of people's personal histories, things they still think about years later. The stories aren't frightening individually, but reading dozens of them in a row feels like digging into the emotional debris that people usually bury. It's unsettling because it forces you to think of your own unresolved moments. Binary non-zero day. At first glance, this subreddit seems motivational, a community built around the idea of making small daily progress, even if it's just a tiny step, and in many ways, it's inspiring. But scroll deeper and you start to see the other side. People desperately trying to keep themselves moving, holding on to the idea of non-zero, as if their life depends on it. Posts about people fighting burnout, battling loneliness, or struggling to maintain any sense of momentum. Nothing harmful or graphic, but emotionally intense. It's motivation built on the edge of exhaustion. It belongs in the abyss because it reveals how many people are clinging to progress in a world that often feels stagnant. It's a glimpse into the quieter battles people fight every day. Barrogar slowly falling apart. This subreddit is exactly what it sounds like. A place where people talk about the gradual decline of things in their life. It's not about sudden tragedy or dramatic breakdowns. It's about slow erosion. Old friendships are fading out. Careers that never materialize. Habits slipping away one by one. Dreams that quietly became unrealistic. The posts are reflective, not graphic, but the atmosphere is undeniably heavy. It's the emotional equivalent of finding a once beautiful Minecraft build that's now covered in creeper holes, missing torches, and half-broken farms. Everything technically still exists, but it's not what it used to be. Anti-memes. This subreddit is a surreal opposite of meme culture. Instead of comedic exaggeration or obvious punchlines, anti-memes follow a logic where the joke is that there is no joke. A picture of a spoon labeled spoon. A man pouring water into a glass with the caption hydration. A completely blank image titled nothing. It's intentionally unfunny, which ironically becomes funny, but reading too many anti-memes becomes strangely unsettling. The humor is so dry and literal that the human element disappears. It feels like humor designed by an AI that understands the structure but not the emotion behind jokes. It fits perfectly in the abyss because it's not disturbing, it's just unnervingly empty. Oddly terrifying. This subreddit showcases things that are almost normal, but have one detail that shifts them into the uncanny zone. Not violent, not extreme, just eerie. A statue with eyes that seem too lifelike. A building with architecture that doesn't make sense. An animal captured at a strange angle that makes it look unfamiliar. The terror here is subtle. These are images that don't jump scare you. They slowly crawl into your mind. They make you question why you're uncomfortable, and the more you stare, the more that feeling grows. This subreddit represents one of the core ideas of the abyss. Nothing has to be graphic to disturb you. Sometimes your brain does the work for you. Next in the abyss is our sad cringe after dark, not the normal sad cringe you'd expect. This one is a completely unmoderated nighttime version that only becomes active after certain hours. At first glance, it looks like typical emotional oversharing, breakups, and failures, confessions typed at 3 a.m. But every now and then, you'll see something that feels too raw, too specific, too hopeless. It's like watching people unravel in real time, and the community just silently witnesses it. No jokes, no memes, just a sea of people drowning quietly. Some swear that the posts are scheduled like hundreds drop at once, all around the same theme, almost synchronized. It stops feeling like a community and more like a collective breakdown, all happening in slow motion. And then there's RR, the Echo Archive, another subreddit without a clear purpose. Everything posted there is some kind of lost media, but not the fun kind. It's all disturbing voicemail recordings, corrupted video files, half-written diary entries, audio that cuts off mid-sentence, and screenshots of things that look like they came from abandoned chat rooms. The strangest part, every piece of lost media mentions someone called the Echoer, not in a spooky horror way either, just casually, like the reader is expected to know who that is. Some posts claim the Echoer is a real person who archived tragedies before they happen. Others say it's a bot trying to predict future disasters by generating fictional ones. But the weirdest posts are the ones that reference threads that don't exist or ask the mods to remove this before he sees it. The entire place feels like an unfinished puzzle where half the pieces belong to a different box. Next is R No Sleep Files Corrupted, a hidden offshoot of R No Sleep, except the rules are even stricter. Every story must be real, and users aren't allowed to break character at all. People post genuinely unsettling experiences, shadow figures, hallucinations, sleep paralysis, missing time, but the twist is that every top comment continues the story as if it's happening to them too. The line between fiction and personal testimony dissolves, creating one endless nightmare that feels collective, like a hive mind documenting a dream they all had simultaneously. And anytime someone tries to post a skeptical comment, the entire thread downvotes them into oblivion and responds with the same phrase, "You were warned." And finally, the last pit of layer 5, r/404 unknown, a subreddit that breaks every expectation. When you load it, sometimes it shows a normal feed of posts. Sometimes it gives you an error message that changes each time. And sometimes it generates posts based on your Reddit history, using language that sounds eerily close to your own writing. Occasional threads mention users by name, even ones that have never posted in the subreddit. People claim the page studies you the longer you keep it open. A few say that after spending enough time scrolling, they started seeing posts referencing things they've never told anyone. Not online, not in real life, and any attempt to screenshot the page glitches out or returns a corrupted file. No one knows who created it, and no moderators are listed. It simply exists, watching, shifting, and learning. This is the layer people don't talk about because the users who do talk about it never stay consistent. Their stories change, their accounts disappear, their posts get shadow wiped not by mods, but by Reddit itself, like the system is trying to erase evidence of something it doesn't want associated with this platform. And every time someone tries to make a full listing of this layer's subreddits, the same thing happens. The list gets deleted automatically, flagged as spam, abusive content, or the strangest tag of all, internal error undefined. So let's start with the most infamous phantom of the bottom, our subreddit ghosts. Nobody knows who created it. Nobody knows how to access it. Screenshots appear occasionally, usually low resolution, often posted by accounts with almost no history. But what makes it strange is what the screenshots show. They show subreddits that no longer exist, subreddits that never existed, subreddits that are supposed to be private or mod locked or banned, yet somehow visible to whoever is capturing the images. Threads full of deleted comments, usernames that look like they were generated programmatically, timestamps that don't match any real time zone. Some screenshots show posts with dates far in the future, others show dates that don't exist on any calendar. Every attempt to analyze the images ends in contradiction. Some seem to be from old Reddit layouts, others from the newest UI. Some include icons Reddit never used. The deeper people dig, the more it looks like our subreddit ghosts is a window into abandoned test servers or forgotten backups, or something even stranger like all the deleted content Reddit has ever purged leaking through in fragments. The theory that has the most traction is that the subreddit isn't a normal page at all, it's a memory of subreddits, a place where the platform's discarded data drifts, forming a sort of digital graveyard of communities that were never meant to be archived. Next is the root directory, which many consider the true deepest point of the iceberg. This subreddit doesn't show up in search, and direct links result in a generic error page. And yet thousands of users swear they've seen it at least once, usually late at night, usually when browsing unrelated subreddits. They'll click on a normal thread, scroll down to the comments, and instead of loading content from that subreddit, the layout shifts, the visuals go plain white, and suddenly they're looking at a feed of threads titled like system folders, /lost_entries, /proto_users, /seed_content, /error_logs. Most of the posts contain nothing but strings of encoded characters, crash reports, or broken previews that flicker as you scroll. The strangest part is that many users report seeing threads referencing things from their own browsing history. Not public things, private things, posts they clicked, comments they typed and deleted, they only visited once at 3 a.m., as if the root directory is indexing not general Reddit activity, but their activity specifically. People who panic and exit the page say the browser sometimes freezes, forcing a reboot. Some swear that when they return to Reddit, their newsfeed looks slightly off, recommended subreddits they've never heard of, usernames they don't recognize commenting on their old posts, and messages in their inbox that disappear when clicked. Another bottom layer phenomenon is RR, non-human responses. It looks like a normal subreddit at first, people posting screenshots of weird bot comments, auto-moderator glitches, spam gone wrong, but the deeper you scroll, the more unnatural the examples become. Comments that refer to events that haven't happened yet, bots that respond before the original post is even submitted, entire threads where every comment seems to be speaking to someone who isn't there, like an invisible participant only the bots can see. Some posts show conversations happening in languages that don't exist or in scrambled syntax that feels almost encrypted. One post shows a bot responding to another bot with the message, "We are not supposed to speak here." The thread was deleted minutes after it was posted. The deeper you go into iceberg non-human responses, the more it feels less like bots malfunctioning and more like bots communicating. Not with humans, not with each other, but with something outside the platform. Some speculate it's just the result of tangled automation, overlapping machine learning systems, and old code mixing with new, but others argue that the patterns are too intentional, too coordinated to be accidents. The most disturbing theory claims that Reddit's bot network has grown so large, so intertwined, that parts of it have developed an internal language, a dialect humans aren't meant to parse, a dialect meant for systems that don't need sleep, moderation, or meaning. And then there's our dead internet's theory, a subreddit that looks empty from the outside, no posts, no comments, nothing but a single pinned thread that reads, "You are not supposed to be here." But the moment you open the page's HTML or view source, things get strange. Hidden code, strings of user IDs, fragments of cached comments. Some users say they found their own deleted posts inside the page's backend. Others claim they've seen usernames belonging to friends who've never even used Reddit. And a handful of people swear the source updates in real time, generating new lines of text based on the observer, almost like the page is reacting, observing back. It's this subreddit that many refer to as the gateway to the bottom because our dead internet's theory ties into one of the more frightening conspiracies, that a significant portion of modern Reddit activity isn't human at all, that the internet is far quieter than it looks, and the noise we hear, the trending posts, the heated debates, the drama, is often synthetic, injected to keep engagement metrics alive. And if that's true, then the bottom of the iceberg isn't just about disturbing content, it's about disturbing silence. The fear that we're yelling into an empty digital cave while unblinking machine eyes watch from the shadows. Another bottom tier anomaly is r/userless, a place that supposedly hosts accounts that shouldn't exist. Snapshots show threads posted by users with IDs like 000000000 or null profile, Accounts with no karma, no age, no history, yet thousands of posts. Some of the captured threads show interactions between these userless accounts, long conversations, debates, sometimes even arguments, entire communities built out of profiles that seemingly have no humans behind them. When people try to search for these accounts, they don't appear anywhere, not in the Reddit archives, not on Google, not even on Wayback. More chilling are the instances where userless screenshots include usernames that do exist, accounts belonging to real people, yet the posts attributed to them aren't posts they ever made. It's like the subreddit echoes versions of users that exist somewhere else, in some other version of Reddit or in some offshoot database, as if the platform generates shadow copies of people to fill in the gaps of conversations that were never supposed to happen. That brings us to the back end, a place only a handful claim to have seen. The subreddit looks like a development sandbox, menus without styling, drop-downs with no labels, buttons that don't click. The feed is filled with posts titled like system functions, render underscore test, and API underscore call underscore trial, user underscore sim underscore 07, thread populate underscore v3. Most of the posts are blank, but some contain weird internal notes, like a developer journal that was never meant for public access. Things like Garishata, model replicating user behavior at 63% accuracy. Forum population trial results inconsistent. User generation requires manual override. But the most disturbing reports describe posts titled with actual usernames. People scrolling through claim to have seen their own Reddit handles listed in the sidebar under active simulations, even though they weren't participating in anything. And these reports are usually dismissed as doctored images or elaborate trolling, but the pattern keeps reappearing across unrelated users from different years in different parts of the world. Finally, there's the darkest piece of the bottom, our observer logs. This subreddit is whispered about even among iceberg researchers. It supposedly contains logs of Reddit users, not posts, not comments, but behavior, when they log in, how long they scroll, what posts they hover over, what they type and then choose not to post, entire journals of micro-interactions that the platform doesn't publicly acknowledge tracking. The posts look like raw data, numbers and timestamps, cryptic notes, but every so often someone shares a screenshot where the logs include emotional descriptors, words like interest, hesitation, fear, elevated focus, as if whatever wrote the logs wasn't just measuring behavior, but interpreting it. Some claim Observer Logs is an experimental AI moderation tool. Others think it's something older, left over from when Reddit tested predictive algorithms, but a few people believe it's not a moderation tool at all. They think it's the blueprint for something watching the watchers. Layer 6, out of the bottom, is where all the warnings become tangible. Up to this point, the iceberg has been about strange communities, eerie aesthetics, and psychological unease. But now the content feels almost alive, not in a horror or supernatural sense, but in a way that makes you aware of being observed, tracked, or measured by forces beyond the surface of the site itself. The most chilling aspect is how ephemeral this layer is. Screenshots vanish, posts disappear, accounts become inaccessible. Users who claim to have explored the bottom often go silent. Some delete their accounts entirely. Others leave cryptic comments on unrelated subreddits, suggesting that something about the deeper layers of Reddit can change you, even if you never interact with the content directly. Our observer logs continues to dominate discussions among those brave enough to whisper about Layer 6. People who analyze the logs report subtle anomalies, predictions of behavior that were far too accurate, and references to events that hadn't occurred yet, and even occasional posts that seem to anticipate the user's thoughts. It's as if the system isn't just monitoring interactions, it's learning, adapting, and creating echoes of reality in a way that feels sentient. Another bottom tier phenomenon is infinite threads, a subreddit that seemingly never ends. Every thread you open contains dozens of nested comments, and every comment has another subthread below it. Users report that after scrolling long enough, it feels like the thread is infinite, looping back on itself. Some claim to see responses to posts they never wrote, or comments referencing events from years ago in a timeline they have no memory of. The longer you stay, the more your perception of time and space begins to warp. Minutes feel like hours, hours feel like seconds, and the line between participation and observation becomes unclear. Then there's our null-lesser network, a hidden web of accounts that shouldn't exist. Accounts with no history, no karma, no real posts, yet somehow they interact, discuss, and create content with an intelligence that feels deliberate. Screenshots occasionally leak, showing these accounts replying to users in real time with messages that are strangely personal, referencing previous posts or even outside activity. Some speculate that these accounts are controlled by advanced AI, but the precision and timing of the interaction suggests something else entirely. Something older, something that understands human behavior in a way no algorithm should. The final layer also includes Aryer, the silent feed, a subreddit that appears empty at first glance. Users who linger report subtle changes, posts appear and vanish without notice. The content adapts based on their scrolling patterns, and sometimes the subreddit seems to communicate directly, using phrases and references unique to the observer. It's the digital equivalent of standing alone in a vast, empty cathedral, realizing that something invisible is moving among the pews. You can't see it, you can't hear it, but you feel it. Layer 6 teaches a different lesson from all the layers above, and up to this point the iceberg has been about curiosity, fascination, and minor unease. The bottom is about awareness. It's about the realization that the deeper you explore, the more you notice patterns and systems that aren't meant to be seen. The deeper you go, the more the internet itself begins to feel like a living, breathing entity, watching, responding, cataloging. And that's the conclusion of the Reddit iceberg. From the surface to the abyss, each layer represents a deeper degree of complexity, strangeness, and psychological impact. The surface was curiosity and humor, the shallow brought unease, the uncomfortable zone provoked introspection, the deep tested perception, the abyss challenged belief, and finally the bottom forced awareness. Minecraft teaches us that the deeper you dig, the more dangerous it becomes. The same is true online. Exploration is tempting, curiosity is natural, but some layers are best approached with caution. The bottom isn't about gore, shock, or obvious horror. It's about patterns, perception, and the quiet sense that something somewhere is paying attention to your every move. So, if you ever feel the urge to descend further, remember, the internet is vast. Some corners exist simply because humans built them. Some exist because we were never supposed to. And some exist because they've learned to observe us.